Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, welcome back to the Psych Legal Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about popular culture through the lens of an attorney and a therapist. I'm Brooke Brigham, I'm the attorney.
And I'm Tess Brigham, I'm the therapist.
In this episode, we are going to be talking about the Netflix documentary just released called Nicole Smith, You Don't Know Me. And
it was a doozy.
Yeah, it was a lot. And I don't know how I feel about it.
Yes,
yeah.
It was. Yeah, we were talking about this before we started, and it's hard to even write. It's hard to even know where to start because it's big picture. It's not a very well made documentary. Part of the problem being that it's a 2-hour documentary, which I appreciate. After watching so many things, it's not
6
10 hours. It's not a million hours long, which I appreciate. But it's also, there are some things that are glossed over that are really important that you wonder why they gloss over. There are some things that are really, they give you chyrons about that you realize, I didn't need a chyron. I didn't need to meet this person, or I didn't need to know that person's name or who they were or meet them. And then, when she gets married, they don't even tell us the date or when this happens, and it's just glossed over.
It's just some video footage.
Yeah, and some recordings of him trying to get a hold of her. And it's like, well, we're not going to talk about this or anything. So it's a little irritating, and the structure of it, and then and like I said, there are some big things that are also glossed over. And then we were reading some articles from the filmmakers, because we were trying to learn more about the filmmakers, why they made this film. And I feel like the articles and interviews from the filmmakers were actually a little more interesting than the film itself, because the filmmakers, the points that they were trying to make about her and about Anna and her role in our society and what she represented is far more interesting than the actual film itself. And I think maybe more interesting than the person that she was.
Yeah. The thing is, I never thought she was very interesting or compelling. I always felt like she was a joke. People just made fun of her, and she was so out of it, and people exploited her, and she did not come off well. That whole reality show that she did.
Did you watch the reality show?
I watched some episodes, and it's just very, very cringy because, it's like she had gained a lot of weight, and a lot of it was about her weight, and she's going to go on a diet, and then you should see her the next minute like eating a bunch of cupcakes. And I mean, it really was, I thought, exploiting her and making fun of her, and she just seemed so out of it.
Yes,
because she had a pill addiction that was pretty severe, and she just always seemed like she barely knew where she was or what was happening to her. And it's just a really sad story. And another thing the filmmakers were pointing out is that right now there's a lot of documentaries out there about women's redemption story, like the Pamela Anderson and Monica Lewinsky and all these different women, and this is not a redemption story.
Yeah, I watched the reality show when it came out, almost kind of like that, train wreck way, and I I don't enjoy laughing at people. I really had a hard time watching the show, and I sort of stopped because of that. I was just like, I can't keep watching this. This is making me uncomfortable. I do love Howard Stern, not Howard K. Stern, this guy, that Howard Stern, the radio. But I will say one of the things about Howard Stern, the radio shock jock, that I've always disliked was that he is obsessed with women being thin and thinness. And he did make fun of her and her weight. And they do show that in the documentary. And it always bothered me. And I remember when she came on the show and them saying things about that, and that bothered me then. And I think they were really rough with her about that. And then she did come back on after she had lost a bunch of weight. And I did think that, so I don't think, I do think that the world did put a tremendous amount of pressure on her, right, to lose a bunch of weight. And I did feel like everybody is in on this joke and making fun of her that she wasn't aware of. But no, I don't think this documentary made her look better. I think it really made her look far worse than it was. And I do think that I actually feel, I don't know, I was very angry by the end of this documentary, like really irritated and
I just
annoyed.
wanted it to be over. I kept looking at, how much time is left on this? I was bored, and I felt like they were just whizzing through like all that stuff that happened at the end of her life, which is some of the more interesting stuff, the whole thing about the paternity of the baby and her son's death and all this stuff. They just kind of whipped on through that and talked about how sad it was that she died and everyone was so upset. And it's like, well, yeah, obviously, but why are we glossing over so much stuff? But anyway, I do think it's pretty remarkable that this woman from this tiny town, population, 6,900 people in the Bible Belt in Mejia, Texas, decides I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And she takes off with her friend Missy.
Yes.
Or she meets her friend Missy. She's at a strip club in her first job.
Well, and so, yeah, I guess I feel like what really bothered me about the entire documentary is I feel like there's this narrative of the documentary of here's this narrative that everyone wants to tell, which is here's Anna. She was this girl who had this dream, and her big narrative is she's this girl that had the dream and she loved her son, and she was this broken woman, and we all just need to feel sorry for her because really in the end, she would do anything for her son, and in the end, she lost her son, and because she would do anything for her son, and all of this. And my feeling is this: Anna didn't do everything for her son.
No, we barely even saw the son.
Anna was about
thing.
Anna. Anna has always been about Anna. Anna has been about using people and using anyone who's been there to do what she needed to do to get to the next step. And that she had a massive, horrendous addiction that made her partially a bit of a monster. So I don't think that she at her core was an awful person, but I do think that she was somebody that it was all about her, and she's always been all about her. And I think that she has justified her behavior for her entire life in her mind. In the last couple lines of the film were her mother saying, why did you do this? Why did you make up these lies? Why did you pretend all this? And she's like, this is my life. It's about me. And I think that summed it all up, that Anna justified every last action that she took her entire life, which was, it's about me. It's my life. And it's a little bit of like, you don't get to do that, Anna. That's not, and my feeling is you don't get to do that. You don't get to do that. No, you don't. It's not all about you. Sorry. And I personally think that makes you kind of an asshole. I mean, and come at me if you want.
Yeah.
If you think I'm being mean about this, but you don't. If you say it's all about me, it's all about me, ha ha ha, great. You can go be a nomad somewhere. But if you want to be part of our society, you don't get it to be all about you. You don't get to do that. You don't get to lie about people and defame people. And do that. You just don't. Sorry.
No, I mean, she's full of shit. You know, all that stuff
don't.
about her son being, oh, he's my everything. He's my... No, first of all, where is he? He's not even... You see a couple pictures of him in passing or videos of him in the documentary. Where is he when you're out doing all this shit?
Yeah.
Who's taking care of him? Like, really, no, he's not the most important thing to you. And he obviously was struggling with addiction that took his life, and she wasn't there for him. No, she's a liar. And she lied about her past. She made up these stories about how her mother used to handcuff her to the bed and beat her savagely. And everyone is like, that's just not true. And the mother is, trying to defend herself. But she made up this story so people would feel sorry for her. So because she knows that bad things attract more attention than good things.
Because it made her seem like she had a rougher childhood, to make it seem like she,
overcame
more.
Yeah.
So
no, she's very unlikable. And
that's why
it was hard to watch.
So that's why I think whatever the filmmakers were trying to do, they really failed at. I mean, if you're trying to show us, because the article that I was reading, they were like, oh, well, we wanted to show her vulnerability. What vulnerability are you trying to show us? You never showed us any vulnerability.
No.
At all. I don't know. Should we start from the beginning of the thing, or how do you want to do this?
I don't want to go through this, scene by scene. It's just too much. I mean, maybe we can just...
Yeah.
I mean, everybody said that she loved to be the center of attention. Mm-hmm. That was the one.
And she was very, very beautiful. That was the thing. She loved being... She was very, very pretty. She loved being the center of attention. She quit school very young, and she didn't want to listen to her mom. And she was raised by her mother and stepfather. And her mom was a police officer,
like a corrections
or a
officer.
Sheriff. And she got a job at Jimmy's Crispy Fried Chicken. And she met Billy, who was a cook there. And I guess Billy kind of was the first guy that I think ever said kind of no to her. So she got infatuated with him. Mm-hmm. And then she started dating him. They got married. And
I think she might have gotten pregnant first.
You think they did?
They got married.
Yeah.
She was only 17.
Yeah. So she very rashly, with no thought process, gets pregnant and has Daniel. But he got very jealous and she wasn't happy. So she has Daniel. And then 6 months old, she splits and she leaves with Daniel. And it's 1986 and Mejia, Texas is right outside of Houston. And this is the oil boom. So she goes to Houston and she goes to a strip club. And she's very, very beautiful. And she gets a job as a stripper.
Yeah, and she meets this woman, Missy, who becomes her lifelong friend. And she said Anna was very good at it. She knew what she was doing. She made a lot of money.
Yeah.
And she told Missy her sad story, her made-up sad story.
About her mother.
And then Missy said she was on a mission to get a boob job.
Yes.
And that this is what started the pain pill addiction, is that after the surgery... She said she started on pain pills, Vicodin, Klonopin, Xanax, Valium. She said she was always taking them.
Okay, I also want to say something too. Vicodin is a pain med. Valium, Xanax, and Klonopin, those are all anti-anxiety meds. Mm-hmm. Those are not pain meds. So I was a little bit like, if you had a rupture or problem with your pain, they wouldn't prescribe you Klonopin, just FYI. That's why it was a little bit of like, so this is when she decided, she figured out like, ooh, this feels good. I'm going to go get a bunch of other meds.
Yeah. I mean, they could have given her the anxiety. Maybe she had anxiety.
Yeah. That's what I'm just saying. It's a little bit like, this is where she figured out like, ooh, this is working for me.
Yeah, so that's where she met, I guess. They kind of skip again.
Yeah, I think this is where she met.
They skip around and skip forward, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's 1991. Okay. Yeah. So she met, while she's dancing, she met the man who she eventually got married to, and he was a widow. He was like 90 years old. He was a billionaire, J. Howard Marshall.
J. Howard Marshall.
And he was infatuated with her, and I think she saw a great opportunity. He bought her a car and a house and asked her to marry him many times, she claims, but she didn't. And she told him something like, I've got to make it on my own first, or some hogwash. And then all of a sudden, we're at the Playboy Mansion.
Yes.
Like,
well, so we meet Marilyn Grabowski, and if anyone follows that, she's the woman that picks people for Playboy. And I guess Anna had been sending in her photos to Playboy, and somehow we got Anna's photos. Now, this came out later on in the documentary that apparently Jay Howard had been supporting Anna a lot. That apparently, like, part of what helped Anna was Jay Howard was, paying for Anna to, because, it's hard. It's like, paying for Anna.
He's paying for stuff, like for her to get her clothes or hair done, get her an agent.
Well, and also PR. Like, PR is very expensive. Like, you could get a PR team. And then if you have a good PR team, your PR team will introduce you to, go to this party, meet this person. And I'm wondering if a good PR person said, put her photo in the right person's hand and said, hey, do this. Yeah. And again, I think that she did have, she's a very attractive woman. She did have the look. She did have all of that. But I think it was her connection to Howard, Jay Howard, that got her Playboy.
For sure.
And then they told this whole story about how, like, she was shy and struggling at the shoot. I'm like, the same woman who's been stripping
every night
for 5 years, but then they played the Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend's song, and she really kind of like came out of her shell. I was just like, wait, what? That was weird. And then, so Missy moved in with Anna to help with Daniel because
someone's got to watch
this kid. And then again, Billy the father is just okay with all this. Billy's just given up parental rights.
Who knows? Yeah. Billy's like, he's an 18-year-old kid in Texas.
So she's on the cover of Playboy, and Paul Marciano from Guess sees her. And
he talked to that woman from Playboy.
Marilyn Grabowski.
Marilyn is the one, she told Paul Marciano about Anna Nicole and said that she's the next Claudia Schiffer.
Yes. So then,
because all the guest models were like famous people.
That's right.
Claudia Schiffer and Christy Turlington and that whole 90s crowd.
And I remember, like, in the late 80s, Guess jeans were the jeans, and they were very expensive at that time. I want to say they were like $40 or $50, which is a lot of money for jeans.
A little bit more than that.
Yeah, which was again
more like $75
at that time.
That was
a lot of money for
like
jeans.
A $200 or $300 pair of jeans today,
and that was a big deal. But I do remember at that time, like, when she became the guest model, like, that was a big deal. And she was, and also I think at that time why that was so significant was that we were living in this time of Kate Moss, this kind of wafy model. Do you remember that? That kind of like heroin chic,
right?
Skinny. And here was this woman who was tall and big and broad shoulder and boobs and hair, and it was refreshing. I remember that.
Yeah.
And and then all of a sudden she's the guest model and she's on billboards everywhere, and this woman just came out of the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it really was. All of a sudden she was famous. Everyone knew who she was.
Yeah, it was crazy.
So she's and now she's out and about in Hollywood. And, she's playing that game with the paparazzi. She poses for them. She talks to them. She's nice to them. And, they would get a lot more per shot of her, a lot more money per shot because they were good pictures, They were engaging pictures.
But this is one of the pieces about the film that's so weird. It's like all of a sudden we're meeting Kevin Smith, tabloid journalist. Now we're meeting a paparazzo, and they don't explain, why are we meeting you now? Like, why are you telling us about this? That's what's very irritating about this. And then now we're seeing her on the phone talking about, she's getting all these roles. She's getting offers to do movies. She's in the Hudsucker Proxy, the Coen Brothers movie, which didn't do very well. And she has like one line in. And then I guess she got the offer to do The Mask. She must have gotten offered the Cameron Diaz role.
But they only wanted to pay her $50,000.
Yeah, but it is interesting. Like, what if she just sucked it up and
she did it?
That's what's so interesting about these things. Is that's very little money, but it's a little bit of like.
But it's like Jim Carrey. He was very famous.
Yeah,
at
but
the time.
You know what? Like a lot of people get fit. You don't
you're
really
a nobody.
You don't really have any acting chops,
you.
and a lot of people get $50,000 their first role. Like a lot of people do. At that time, I could tell you a lot of people that were getting that much for their first role.
Yeah, that was really stupid of her.
I do wonder about that. And there was the other one, Naked Gun 3. Was she in that or no?
Oh, I don't know.
I feel like they went with
missed that.
So, and then we also meet Kelly Moore, who I guess is Anna Nicole's attorney, who's Anna Nicole's maybe first attorney for this whole case with Jay Howard.
Well, I think this is before the whole Jay Howard thing.
But I guess she starts talking about how Jay Howard wanted to adopt Daniel.
Oh.
And I'm like, okay, so what about Billy? Did Billy give up his rights?
Well, but that he maybe Jay Howard was serious about it, but I think he was just trying to do whatever he could to hold on to her. Because he knew that even with all his money, she's not going to, she's not going to stick around. And, but I just doubt that Anna ever wanted that or, but there was one part where Daniel was calling him dad.
Yeah.
I doubt Daniel ever saw his father again. I mean, they don't.
Yeah, I guess
they
so.
never mentioned the.
No, we never hear about this guy again.
Ever again.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, but this is my favorite part. So we see this scene of, Anna dutifully going to Jay Howard's house for the holidays. And we see, he's in this wheelchair and Daniel's there and it's the holidays and we're unwrapping gifts and she's helping him unwrap a gift. And so she's given Jay Howard this gift. And she gives him this gift of a big, giant blow-up picture of her in like a naughty Santa, like Santa outfit in front of her son. Here's mommy giving, and you're looking at this photo, you're looking at this picture going, so this is you doing everything you can for your son.
Right.
This is you, right? Like,
mom.
this is great mothering. Just right in front of your son.
Yeah.
And the lawyer at the time, so the lawyer is saying, and the lawyer in the background's going, she's not a gold digger. She's not a gold digger. You're just watching this scene like,
whatever.
Let's kind of call, yes. Do I think that Anna cared about this person? Yeah, I do think she cared about him. I think he cared about her. Do I think that she cared about him as a human being? Yes, I think they cared about each other. Do I think that if he worked at, a steel mill, that she would hang out with him and want to spend time with him?
Of course not.
No. And if she was a mousy brown-haired little girl, would he want to hang out with her? No. Like, let's call this what it was. Like, they both wanted, there was some need that they both were getting from each other. So let's all be honest with each other about what this all was and stop pretending.
Oh, stop romanticizing.
Yeah. Come on, you guys.
Well, then this is one of the more disturbing parts.
Yeah. Really.
This just pivots to this out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But, so Anna decides that she hires a private investigator to find her biological father. And they found him, and they originally called her brother, like I guess it's her half brother on her father's side, Donnie. And so a PI contacted them, said Anna Nicole wanted to reconnect. She flies them out to LA, picks them up in a limo, and she's got like pigtails on.
Yeah,
like she's kind of
very disturbing.
And she's acting like a little girl. She's like, "Oh my God, Daddy!" And she's hugging him. And this guy, he looks like an Elvis impersonator.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of he's looking around like, okay, what the hell? And they're drinking champagne in the limo. And They just look really stunned. And the dad even in the limo, he's kind of handsy with her. She keeps hugging him, and he's just kind of, his hands are kind of wandering around, and she's saying, he's my daddy. And then she took them to the Playboy Mansion because she was Playmate of the Year.
Yes. And where she wears the Marilyn Monroe dress.
Yeah.
The infamous.
And I don't know who said this. It was the brother.
The brother says this.
He says, my father is not the type of guy you want to be alone with. He's a monster. He raped his wife's sister when she was a child. And
he's a scary person.
Brother was always afraid of him. And so he actually let her know this. And then Anna told Missy that her father tried to have sex with her on this trip.
Yeah.
So that was the end of that. Father fantasies that she had.
Well, and then Donnie at first was like, I think the filmmakers are maybe telling him this. And at first Donnie's like, oh, but I was with him the whole time. And then Donnie's like, but I wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah.
It was so interesting too. And the funniest thing too is when you see this is all being recorded for something. Like, is it being recorded for a documentary? Is it being like, there's a lot of things being recorded and you're like, what is this being recorded for?
She might have been one of those people who record everything.
Yeah. Or is it like, is this being recorded for some Playboy thing? Like behind the scenes. Maybe. And then they show you how you see that where she talks about how she reached out to her father and then we hear Donnie's side of the story about how like this person called us and then it was Anna who called us and then my father got on the phone. It was very matter of fact, like, yeah, okay, we'll come out. They're great. And then we hear Anna's side of the story and Anna's like, my dad said, oh yes, I've been waiting all my life for this phone call and blah, blah, blah. And you can see already like, oh, this is Anna. Anna makes up stories.
Yeah.
Like Anna lives in this weird fantasy world in her life. And I think that we have done these documentaries before about people who perpetually lie, who, she is one of these people who lies, like makes up stories, makes up fantasies, like makes up things to make themselves look better, either be the victim or be the hero or be whatever they want to be in their story, in their tale.
Yeah.
So now we see something that says a few months later, Anna is hospitalized because she ODs after a fight with her boyfriend. And then they also mentioned that 4 months prior to that, River Phoenix had died. And I guess apparently this was a big thing in the news because a lot of celebrities had been ODing from drug use. I don't know how any of this has to do with Anna, but I guess apparently the stress of life had been getting to her. Her usage was getting worse. Pressure was rising. She was treating Marshall like J. Howard Marshall like an ATM. She apparently had maxed out his credit card. I don't know how you max out a billionaire's credit card. And then the battles had really been starting with Marshall's son, Pierce. So do you watch the show Succession?
No.
Okay. Well, if anyone watches the show Succession, which is about a family of billionaires where I guess Pierce has been dealing with his father his entire life. And apparently J. Howard Marshall apparently was a bit of a tyrant and really terrible to his son, Pierce. And I guess Pierce has been like, listen, I've been putting up with this guy my entire life. I'm inheriting all of this. I've been working for him.
And Howard, he had disowned his other son.
Oh, I didn't know
He has another son who later kind of hooked up with Anna and tried to in the legal case. But yeah, he had completely disowned his other son over something. So this one son, Pierce, is the one who's been, he's been managing everything, putting up with this guy for years. And then this woman comes along and he's just like, oh, hell no.
Yeah. So, this is when he starts to step in and say, oh no, this is not happening. This is not.
But he couldn't do anything about it. They got married. Their response to that was that they got married.
Yeah.
So he kind of pushed them together. I mean, there was nothing he could do. I mean,
well, but he eventually did do something. We see this later on.
Who?
Pierce did do something.
Well, yeah, he fought her in the legal case, but I mean, there was nothing he could do. There was never a will. he never changed his will or anything. Her whole legal case was based upon a promise that she claimed that he made to leave her half of everything. So that's a little bit different. But the guy never changed his will, never, other than the house he bought her or whatever, never transferred any assets to her. So he actually, did, not have to. I mean, nothing really terribly bad happened. He had to spend a lot of money on lawyers to fighting her, but otherwise, anyway, they get married. I don't even know if they had any sort of a prenup. They don't talk about that.
Yeah, they don't talk about this at all, and they don't even tell you dates or anything. It's just just in the documentary. And then it's around this time that Missy decided to quit. Missy does reveal in the documentary that she and Anna become lovers. Missy had a really horrendous life. She talks about her own childhood that was full of abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, and she doesn't trust men. And she talks about she and Anna were lovers and that they had this intimate relationship, but by the time she got here, that she was an egotistical monster. She'd become a full-blown drug addict, and that she felt like she was done, that she kept all of her secrets. She was very angry and that she couldn't take it anymore. So she's gone. So Anna's very much on her own. But this is where I guess apparently Pierce was working behind the scenes, stripping Marshall of his power, that Marshall had bought, that Jay Howard had bought Anna some diamonds, and that then this was the legal stuff that I didn't quite understand, that then he had to make Anna return the diamonds. Do you remember this?
I don't remember the diamonds thing at all. I have here that he
went into a decline. He was so depressed, and that then Pierce, and that he went into the hospital, and that Pierce then blocked Anna from seeing Jay Howard in the hospital, and that then she even had to go to court to get visitation rights to see him. Do you remember any of this?
Well, I just have written down that I know he prevented Anna from seeing him. And she had to go to court to try to see him. He cut her off for any money for her agents and her stuff. So he was taking some action. But in the meantime, he's calling her and leaving her all these messages. He seems confused. Where are you? And I miss you.
But I thought that was around the time that shortly after they got married.
Well, yeah, according to the documentary, this all happened in this succession, this quick succession. I don't know. Again, this is not the documentary didn't do a very good job of showing us the timeline. It just kind of dumps a bunch of shit on you. And no context as to time or anything. And they say very just kind of broad statements, no details, don't really explain anything.
Well, so I thought that's what I wrote down, what they were saying, which was that during this time, that when Pierce kind of got wind of, oh crap, these two got married, I better start working behind the scenes, that he did figure out something with the trust that started to reduce his father's power. That coupled with the fact that Anna wasn't really around too much, that once they got married, that she was like, okay, now I'm going to go again. She would kind of dip in and out, right? That he started to really go into decline. He was also 90. That he started to go into decline, that Pierce was working behind the scenes, that she then, that she had to fight for visitation. She sees him in the hospital. We see that photo. He then dies at 90. He has a $1.6 billion he apparently promises her. Apparently, there's nothing in writing.
No, of course
there's nothing in writing. So he promises half her money. And one of the things, as we mentioned earlier, she was very much protected by him in many ways. That he was funding a lot of stuff for her. That
her money's now cut off.
Her money's cut off.
Yeah.
And so she's now broke.
She ended up having to file bankruptcy, which led to a very interesting turn of events.
And that all of these people that were connected to her, like William Morris dumps her, fashion contracts aren't renewed. And the other thing is pills are very, very expensive. Yes, you can get them from doctors, but doctor shopping and all of that's tough. But you could also get pills. You can buy pills, on the street from people. And it's very expensive to buy pills. So I think that she had a very hardcore drug problem. So if she was buying the pills, that's where I think a lot of her money was going.
Yeah, and then enter Howard K. Stern.
Howard, is it K or J? I kept saying
K.
J. It's K.
Howard K. Stern. Not to be confused
with the other Howard.
The other Howard
So I
Stern.
have to say Howard K. Stern, the lawyer.
Yeah. So he was described as a low-level attorney. He thought he would move in and get the money. And this was according to RuPaul. See,
Yes,
another random
yes.
thing. All of a sudden,
That was random.
RuPaul is being interviewed, and it's like, whoa. Okay.
Why are you here?
Yeah. And then they just cut to her testifying in the probate court in Houston. And, so anyway, that they had a whole trial on that. And 13 out of the 16 people on the jury were women, and she received nothing. The attorney Rusty Hardin, who was Pierce Marshall's attorney, he was very proud of himself. Oh, yeah.
He was just like, he was like, I'm just going to let her hang herself.
Yeah. And the strange thing, they don't go into this in the documentary, but she did file bankruptcy, and the bankruptcy court did this really weird thing where they made a finding that even though the state court, probate court said, no, you're not entitled to anything, the bankruptcy court made some finding that she was entitled to like $400 and something million, and which was very weird because they don't even have jurisdiction that's federal court, federal jurisdiction. And then the case went on this circuitous route of going into different state and federal courts and being appealed. It made its way to the goddamn Supreme Court.
Yes, we see that later on. I was going to ask you about that. Like, how in God's name did this stupid thing go to
I was
Supreme?
reading about it this morning and like all the things that happened, and it kind of bounced between state and federal court because really the issue in the case had nothing to do with really Anna Nicole Smith and this, whether she was promised this money. It had to do with a federal court imposing jurisdiction over a state matter and whether or not that was constitutional or not, because the Bush administration was interested in expanding the powers of the federal courts. And so they I think they use this as a test case.
Oh.
This is a real nerdy thing, but it's like the case went to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals a couple times, kept going back and forth, state and federal, ended up in the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said, no, they didn't have the jurisdiction to do that. Federal court cannot get involved in, the state court matter. So it was a real, legal precedent. And I can't believe it came from, this lady.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. So... But of course, they explain nothing.
Yes.
It's hard to explain, but they explain nothing in the documentary, and then they just move on to reality TV time.
But the thing is so what the documentary could have done, which was a bit interesting, was we now moved to 2002. It's the early days of reality television. Anna is at a very weird point, right, where nothing's going on for her.
She needs money.
She needs money. Whatever fame she has is gone.
Yeah.
And here's reality television. The Osbournes are huge. She was someone that E-Television liked, and they approached her about doing a show, which was actually good for her because she really can't do much. She's not an actress. She's not this. She's not that, which is good for reality television. This is around the time of Nick and Jessica on MTV. And they approach her about doing this show, and she does it, and it becomes a bit of a hit.
But for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden we meet all of these men, this Paul and Patrick.
Oh, Paul and Patrick. Yeah.
Did you listen to them on Juicy Scoop?
Well, I listened to Jeff Lewis radio, and they're always on there.
Yeah. And talking.
But I didn't listen to the Juicy Scoop interview about it because I just felt I'm like, I don't think I can take it.
Yeah.
These two guys talking about how wonderful Anna Nicole Smith is.
Well, yeah, that was so I listened to them on Juicy Scoop. They seem to really think Anna's a lot more dynamic and special than I do.
Yeah.
And they're kind of an interesting pair.
Yeah.
to say the least.
They're goofy.
They are. I also wonder how in God's name do they make money? And
well, they have a reality show. This guy, Paula, too, is a designer.
Yes.
And he actually dresses a lot of famous people.
Yes.
At women. And they have this reality show called, it's not Say Yes to the Dress, but it's a play on words of Say Yes to the Dress, I think.
Okay.
Something like that. But yeah, where famous people come in and you watch them get their, gown design and whatever. So, and they do other things too, what I don't know, but. But they were friends with her.
Yes. So they start talking about the show and how they had to kind of like fill time and talking about how the media was very, very harsh about her weight because in between that time she had, when she was out of the spotlight, she had gained a lot of weight. And that she had developed an eating disorder from her time. She had been told that she needed to lose weight from the time that she started at Playboy. And then this was very strange. Again, this was, they jumped right to the trim spa stuff, right? But the reality show was on for a couple years. The reality show was on for, I want to say 3-4 years, and she was heavy for a couple years. And then it was the trim spa stuff, right? And it was a little. Then we meet Howard K. Stern's sister, and she's talking about, again, the storytelling's very off. Like, so she's talking about, we lost like 25, 30 pounds. And it was like, so you lost that naturally? And then she started trim spa. Did you try trim spa first? And then this, and then she's talking about going over to Anna Nicole's and she has this white ring around her mouth because of dehydration. So you're saying that she's starving herself and she's taking diuretics. Do you remember this story? I was just like,
very
what?
Little.
Yeah, I mean, they're talking about how and Anna won't let her call a doctor because she's starving herself. It's just the stories are very frustrating because you kind of don't know where they are.
And you don't know what to believe.
Yeah. So Anna loses a ton of weight. She, of course, she looks, she's a beautiful woman. She looks great. She's kind of quote unquote back. And then there's tons of stories about her being back. So she becomes the spokesperson for Trim Spa, and Trim Spa takes off. It becomes huge. It becomes this big thing. And essentially, Trim Spa is like any of these other diet drugs. It's like
amphetamines.
Yeah, it's supposed to be quote unquote ephedra free, but it's another kind of like speed type drug,
diet pills.
And then what happens is, I'm sure that Trim Spa. She's still, despite everything, she is still, despite sort of like after her infamous OD, her people know that she is kind of loopy and out of it, but it's not really spoken of. Like it's sort of this thing that people know, but is not. I don't know how to explain it. It's this unspoken thing, but everyone knows that she's out of it. I'm sure the Trim Spa did not do well with all the other drugs, but she has this infamous thing of her going to the American Music Awards and introing Kanye. Do you remember that? They show that where she sings.
I saw the clip. I didn't
really
see it in real
high
time.
and bizarre.
Yeah, no, she was high, and I think,
but then that her bodyguard Momo says, but she seemed very lucid. So he was saying what he was implying was that she comes across on stage as being really high and out of it. But then once she's backstage, she's normal.
Well, maybe, I guess that was her act.
Was that the act?
I guess.
I don't know.
But
that gives her tons of attention.
Yeah, she loves attention. People have always said that. So then she meets this guy, Larry Burkhead, who's a photographer. She meets him at the Kentucky Derby. And she says she wanted to have another baby, but she didn't want the father to have any rights. And she thought that he was on the same page.
This whole thing really, really bothered me. This whole thing. And Paul and Patrick talked about this on Juicy Scoop too. And I have a lot of feelings about this, which is she wants to have a baby. She wants to have a little girl. And I think Paul and Patrick talked about this where she also wanted to have a blonde. She wanted to have a little girl that was blonde. So, and she wanted to have someone, she wanted to have another child, much like Daniel without a father. No. Okay. I got to crazy idea, Anna. If that's what you want, go to a goddamn sperm bank. You're acting like this is an impossible thing for you to do.
She uses people
in this modern world, and
she doesn't want to have to pay for it. She just thinks this guy is so dumb, like that he'll just.
But what Paul and Patrick were saying was they were so dismissive of Larry Burkhead. They were so like, oh, he's a user. He's this, he's that. He just used her. He was using her for fame. He was using her to get ahead. He was using her for this. And I'm like, okay, just like Anna used J. Marshall Howard, just like she used this, like Anna's a user. And so you cannot exactly get on Larry about this. And also, you know, you like, okay, I'm sorry, but you can't get mad at someone because we don't quite know exactly what the deal was. No one quite knows what the deal was between these two people, but
if there even was one. I mean, maybe they just hooked up and had sex, and she's thinking in her mind she's going to use this guy to have a baby, and she doesn't communicate any of this to him. And then, when the baby, by the time it was out that she was pregnant, and she'd already like fled to the Bahamas.
Yes.
And he had to go through all kinds of stuff to, get a DNA test at the end there. But no, this is just revisionist history. You know, it's just whatever.
They're all saying like, oh, she couldn't stand him, all of this stuff. It's like, okay, then why are you, what?
How do you know?
Why are you complicating? But there's a little bit of like, then you decide to have why are you complicating your life? Why have a baby with someone you cannot stand? You can't just use this guy as a sperm donor.
Well,
then go find a sperm donor.
She gets what she wants. So anyway, then enter Dr. Sandeep.
Yes.
He took over a practice from whatever doctor she was seeing. And this guy was giving her methadone, and she had such a high tolerance for any of these drugs. I don't know. This guy seemed like a bit of a pusher, although he was later found to be, they investigated him and they found him to be clean. I guess, he didn't do anything wrong, but I don't know. But he's on this documentary just freely talking about all the drugs he gave her.
Her pain, she must have had, she must have gotten to a point with her pain meds where someone must have said to her, like, listen, you've got such a pain thing. So you have to get off. What happens, right, is someone convinces you've got to either get off all these pain meds or we're going to put you on some kind of methadone and you've got to be on this methadone for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. And I had a client when I was working in drug and alcohol treatment, I had a client who detoxed off methadone. This girl was 19, 20 at the time. It was the nastiest detox I have ever seen. Young girl, healthy, young. That stuff is gross to get off of. So, once you get on methadone, it is impossible to get off of. But I thought
methadone was what you took to get off of like heroin or something.
It is all methadone is. It's like a it's just like it's a Band-Aid. It's just a Band-Aid. Basically, what you're doing is you're just saying to someone like a heroin addict, okay, we don't want you taking heroin. We don't want you committing crimes. We'll just put you on methadone. It keeps you, I don't know. I don't really know how high methadone makes you, but it just kind of keeps you on this even keel and, just keeps you just going.
So you don't overdose.
So you don't do anything terrible. So you just kind of maintain.
Ugh.
And obviously, and this was one of the reasons, that's one of the things that killed Daniel in the end, was he was experimenting with this methadone that she was taking. But that's pretty hardcore. If she was, she must have been on this methadone for a long time and also pregnant.
So she makes this video where she confirms that she's pregnant and she says that Howard K. Stern is the father. And then around this time, Daniel really starts changing. He's drinking a lot. He's taking his mom's methadone. Mm-hmm. I have here, the Supreme Court took her case. This is how this documentary goes. Yeah. It's just like, okay, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened.
Yeah.
So Larry is trying to establish custody. Mm-hmm. So she flees to the Bahamas.
Because I guess in the Bahamas, whoever's on the birth certificate as the father,
whoever signs it is the father. And she had some sort of a connection with somebody over there in order to get some sort of, not citizenship, but residency or something. And there were some rumors that she slept with some guy who was like the minister of, passports or immigration or something. so that they could stay there. But she's calling Dr. Sandeep, from,
because she's going to run out of her methadone, which would be nasty.
And he said stopping could be deadly, but the baby.
Yes.
So she must have taken that all throughout that pregnancy, because if it's that hard to get off of, like, I don't know. And then the doctor says Daniel called him.
Yeah.
And said that he and his mother weren't getting along, and he seemed very anxious, not doing well. And he gets admitted
to the hospital in LA or LA. So he's still back home.
He's taking Lexapro,
which is for anxiety, which is not a heavy duty drug.
No.
I mean, lots of people take Lexapro. It's pretty common for anxiety. But I guess that he gets the Lexapro, but apparently he also has, I guess he's really afraid of flying. I guess he doesn't fly much. So he has to fly to the Bahamas. So apparently I think he took something to fly. So he's experimenting with mom's methadone. He's taking this Lexapro. And I guess he maybe took something else to fly. So maybe all these things together and maybe some other things. And my guess would also be that when he went to the doctor at the hospital, my guess is he probably didn't say, I'm also, this is also what people do, is they don't tell people like, yeah, I'm kind of taking Lexapro and I went to this party the other night and did a bunch of coke. And, people don't tell people what they're doing.
Yeah. So September 7th, 2006, Danny Lynn is born. Daniel comes to the hospital and dies the next day from a toxic overdose.
Yeah, I guess he arrives. So she is born September 7th. He arrives on September 9th, and then he dies the next day on the 10th, which is really tragic. I mean, horrible.
Yeah.
And she's a horrible situation.
She's just obviously a wreck and didn't want to live. And I guess it took a long time for them to bury him because of different, issues.
Yeah.
But when they've had the funeral, I read this. I don't think this was in the
This was not in the documentary, because this was all, I remember all this in the news. I remember them trying to, all this burial stuff and where to bury him and all that,
And then finally, when they were burying him, she asked them to open the casket, and she tried to get in the casket. And wouldn't get out. And it's just awful. And so, but her bodyguard, Momo, told her she had to live for Danny Lynn, but she just wanted to be with Daniel. She just wanted to take pills and sleep. And so then I guess 1 month after Daniel's death, Larry Burkhead comes forward. Howard K. Stern is still claiming he's the father. And
she does, what the other thing too is, they didn't talk about this. Doesn't she legally marry Howard Stern at some point? Howard
legal.
K. Stern? It's not legal.
They had a ceremony in the Bahamas, literally a couple weeks after Daniel's death. But from what I read, it wasn't, they had no marriage certificate. It wasn't legal, but they were just kind of doing it, I think, to maybe scare off Larry Burkhead. I don't know. So that was meaningless. But so that's now we're into, I don't know what month that is. But anyway, 4 months after that is when she dies.
February 8th, 2007.
Yeah, and she's in Florida at the Hard Rock Hotel.
Is that where she is?
Yeah.
Okay.
She just overdosed.
Yeah.
And at the time, everyone was focused on Howard K. Stern. They were blaming him, and because he was enabling her, and they blamed the doctor, Sandeep, but no charges were filed against them, or nothing came of it, or whatever. But it all was just the whole thing was just very super sad. And now you have this little baby girl who, her family is dead, and
Well, thank God for Larry Burkhead. I mean, I think now, right, we see she has a pretty stable life with him.
She's lived with him in Kentucky this whole time, and he doesn't exploit her at all. He takes her to the Kentucky Derby every year. You know, see pictures of them.
I mean, I think that they do. I do think that, right, he sells some pictures here and there. I mean, I think he has to kind of live and
well, and people want to see her, and he probably knows people want to see her, but he's not exploited her at all, and hopefully she's had a normal childhood. But he finally gets, I can't remember, he was trying to get a DNA test in the Bahamas, and he was going through legal processes to try to do that, and he couldn't, I don't think he ever made that happen. He had to wait till he had to get some kind of a warrant or something, but he got the DNA test in the United States, and he was the father. Yeah. And so luckily, you know, she had someone to raise her, and, you know, seems to have turned out well.
And the other thing is, which I think is kind of interesting, as opposed to like some of these other people that are talking poorly about him, is, you know, Larry's never talked poorly of her, never talked poorly of any of these other people. He's really kept his mouth shut. And she seems like you know, we don't hear about her getting DUIs, and, you know, she's 16, 17 now, right? I mean, what year was she born? She's 2006. She's 17 now, right? Almost 17. So, you know, she's obviously a nice person and hopefully well-adjusted and all of these things. So obviously he's done a good job. And I just do think it's interesting when I heard Patrick and Paul on Juicy Scoop, how rough they were on him, and how just, it's a little bit of, well, hold on a second. You know, he's been, you know, he's done a good job. He's not slamming anybody.
I don't see what there is to be upset with him about.
He's not slamming her name. He's not doing anything terrible. I don't see him.
She's the one who lied to everybody.
Yeah, dragging him through the mud or anything.
Give me a break.
So at the very end of this, Missy initially felt like, you know, she felt very sad when she heard that Anna died, and she said that Anna always said that she would die young, and she felt terrible. And then she says, you know, I see her on TV talking about her childhood. And Missy says she's talking about my childhood, and saying it exactly how
So she took her story.
My story. And then we meet Anna's brother, and the brother says that Virgie, Anna's mom, did not abuse Anna. You know, the one that all of those stories that Anna talked about, and even as we see in the first scene of the documentary where Anna shows us, this is the house that I grew up in.
Yeah, she does this video where she's showing everybody where she went to high school, where she lived. Turned out that was not her house.
Yes.
That she showed some rundown house. She grew up in this pretty nice, you know, like
3-bedroom,
middle class neighborhood, nice house. It was all a lie.
Yeah.
It was a story.
That she grew up in this nice home with a carport, 3-bedroom, that Missy says that, you know, that the person that rescued Anna over and over again was her mother, that because her mother had this law background, that it kind of saved them, that Anna, you know, really, and Anna's big thing was, I don't want to be a mother like my mother. And you know, that the big story was that Virgie would go to Anna and say, why would you make up these stories? And she would say, well, you know, this made me more money. This did this for me. This did that for me. And, you know, as I was saying earlier, her big reasoning was, this is my life. And, you know, that's why I keep coming back to this. In my notes, it was just like, she has this hustler mentality. You know, it's like this hustler mentality of, it doesn't matter at all, you know, what you say, what you do, it doesn't matter. It's just about this bottom line. It's about getting paid. It's about getting what I want. It doesn't matter who I hurt, who it affects, how it affects other people. Yeah. It's about, you know, me, and what I do, and what does it matter? And it's a little bit of like, yeah, it does. And ultimately, I'm sorry, but in the end, it did matter, because it did hurt your son. And this was what happened was that your son did get hurt and he was hurting, and you weren't, because of your drug abuse, because of your issues, because of your drug abuse, because of your selfishness, you weren't paying fucking attention to him.
She's all this stuff you're saying, this stuff doesn't even enter her mind. She has made up a story in her mind about every single thing about her life, none of which is true. She doesn't care. She was just not a good person, just really messed up. And I don't know if she was always like that since she was a child, or kind of.
So you don't think that even way back 15, 16, that she was...
Well, her mother talked about how she was always, as a teenager, before she had Daniel, she was always sneaking out of the house, leaving the house. She was dating some 29-year-old man.
Yeah. That was
and she was sneaking out of the house. They had to board up the windows and stuff so she wouldn't get out, but somehow she still managed to get out. I think she's always just been off, but I don't know. Actually, I misspoke earlier about that Dr. Sandeep Kapoor and Howard K. Stern. They were charged.
Yeah, but it was
conspiring to supply controlled substances to an addict, and Dr. Kapoor was acquitted. Stern was found guilty, but the conviction was later dismissed.
That was in the end of the Chiron, the thing. Yeah.
But yeah, I remember when that happened, there was a lot of people coming down on this Howard K. Stern, which, what is he supposed to do? As if he can control her, I mean, she was uncontrollable.
Yeah.
Uncontrollable.
Yeah, well, so the consensus is documentary bad, Anna asshole.
I mean, I think the documentarians tried. It was just a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like if they had taken this approach of talking, because I do think some of the few things that I thought were interesting was, I think when she was on Arsenio Hall and she was talking about sex and kind of putting Arsenio, because Arsenio was asking her some questions about like faking orgasms, and she was she put it back on him, and she was very honest. I thought that part was really interesting. I think like how she, just the beginning of reality television and using that to her advantage. And I think that she was smart. I think that she was smart in some ways. I think, I do think that she was, she hook, line, and sinker, a billionaire. I mean, I think she did have some things going for her. I do think that she obviously had charms and other things. I think that if they focused on some of those things, how she got the paparazzi, so fascinated by her, I think that if they had focused on that and women in the early 2000s, some of that stuff, some of these things that are coming up again, the Paris Hilton stuff. I mean, this was this era. I think
that would have been a 6-hour documentary.
I know, but I think that if they had used some of those pieces and showed it in this other way, it might have been a little more interesting. I don't know. But they really just kind of missed the boat. Okay, we're wrapping it up. We're wrapping it up.
Thanks for hanging in there if you're still with us. If you like our podcast, please give us a 5-star rating and review. And you can find us on social media at Psych Legal Pop on Instagram and TikTok. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah, and subscribe.
Oh, that's right. Subscribe too.
Yes. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.